And welcome back. And we're moving into our second conversation for today, talking about Canada celebrating its 150th anniversary of Confederation. And we'll find out more about how they're celebrating it in Belize and what it means for them. So with us this morning, we have the High Commissioner of Canada to Belize, Deborah Chatsis. We have the political counselor to the High Commissioner, Deborah Karoline, Guay, and we have Laura Daly, who is a senior trade commissioner. Good morning, ladies, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much for inviting us to be with you. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Hi, we're happy to have you. And first of all, we should say congratulations to you all, and of course, marking 150 years since the Confederation in Canada. So let's just step back into history. This is a great opportunity for people to learn more about Canada and talk about what it represents, right?
Well, for Canada, I think it's a great achievement, of course, being 150 years of Confederation. It was 150 years ago that the original 4 provinces decided to form a confederation and begin Canada's step towards independence.
Yes.
So the country has been built. It was built over almost the next 100 years, with the other provinces and territories joining Confederation. So now we've got 10 provinces and 3 territories. This is really, I think, a remarkable opportunity for us to think about where we've come so far, our history in Canada, which has been good, but also there have been parts that haven't been so good. To reflect on those, but also to look where we want to go in the future. The themes for the 150th anniversary are youth, diversity, and inclusion, because that is a very important theme for Canada and for Belize. Climate change, because that's one of our current challenges, and reconciliation between Canada's Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people. So those are the 4 main themes, and we're using it as an opportunity to look about where Canada goes in the future.
Yeah. Now, looking at the spread and the reach that you have across the globe, it is an opportunity. I think people hear very often about the relationships between countries, but they don't understand necessarily what the benefits are on the ground. And I want to talk a bit about that, because Belize has an excellent relationship with Canada, and you're also considered one of the friends of Belize when we talk about the Belize Guatemala issue. So let's just talk about the history between the relations between the 2 countries as well, right?
Yes. Well, we're very pleased that we've had a good history of relations. Canada has been a strong supporter of Belize up until and including the time of independence. And so we're really pleased that we're able to continue to support the country here. And of course there are benefits to that, both to Belize and to Canada. And this, like, I can give you some concrete examples of the areas of cooperation that we have. There are probably, I think, over 5,000 Canadians that live here in Belize. And so these are people that are here to work, to invest in the country. Some have come to retire, but they're all here to contribute to Belize's economy and to Belize's development. There are also over 156,000 tourists from Canada that come every year. So there's a variety of people, old and young, that come to enjoy Belize's culture and history. And we're really pleased that last year Canada and Belize concluded an open skies agreement, which allows for direct flights between the countries. So now there are 2 airline companies from Canada that have direct flights to Belize. So that's WestJet and Air Canada. So we're hoping that this will bring more Canadians down to Belize and Belizeans back to Canada as well.
That's right.
There are also a good number of Belizeans who have studied in Canada, particularly in Eastern Canada, in Nova Scotia, in Newfoundland. There are a lot of students that study at Memorial University and Grenfell campus as well. So we're really pleased about that. We'd like to encourage more of these education links. We know that there are some Canadians that come down here as well to do research and to participate in academic exchanges, but we'd like to see more of that as well.
Yeah. And I was going to touch on that because I think more and more we see Belizeans seeking opportunities, not just for study, but also work opportunities within Canada as well. And the Memorial Universities is one great option for people, but there are other scholarship opportunities that are available as well for people to be able to study in Canada. Do you have any interactions with the students before they leave in terms of kind of acquainting them, not just to the cold that they'll meet, but to other cultural nuances?
Unfortunately, we're not able to do that just because we're not, we don't see them before they go.
Yeah.
But many of the universities have programs that are specifically designed for international students. Yeah. So they'll greet them and they'll coach them through that process, including buying them warm clothes for the winter.
So, High Commissioner, we know that you reside within Guatemala, but you make enough trips back to Belize. We've had you on the show before, very early into your time as High Commissioner. Let's talk about some of the things that people would be surprised. So people who haven't been exposed or aren't very acquainted with Canada, what are some of the similarities we have in terms of cultures or even within the people?
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's the basic one. We share the English language, of course. Our second official language is French. We share sort of the Commonwealth connections and the history from Britain. So we have a parliamentary system of government. Well, as I mentioned before, we have a very diverse population, and we have a strong community of people from the Caribbean. So I think one of the largest Caribbean festivals in the world is in Toronto every summer. And that's a very big event, Caravana. What else? Well, we love spicy food. We love food of all kinds. We love, vacationing in warm places. Yes. So I don't know if, go ahead. Hey.
I think appreciation for nature is another one. We talked a lot about climate change, but both countries really care about climate change and their natural environment. So I think that would be another common thread.
And I'll just add a cliche that I think both countries use to describe ourselves, that we're friendly. I think we see that in Belize. Everyone says, friendly Belize, welcome, and it's true. And in Canada, we really pride ourselves on that as well, to be friendly and welcoming to everybody.
Absolutely. No, and also you do have a population of Indigenous people as well, and I appreciate you said that part of the theme for 150 years is to be able to reconcile, and I think that's such a strong statement to say. Let's talk about what are the efforts being made within Canada. We've seen in Belize where there have been some challenges, while we celebrate or multicultural society, we still have issues of discrimination that still take place. Talk about some of the efforts being made in Canada for this reconciliation that you speak of.
Well, I think it was in December 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was set up in Canada released its final report along with recommendations or calls for action to Canada. And much of that was focused on the government and things that the government can do, including looking at laws and regulations. The government set up an inquiry on murdered and missing Indigenous women because unfortunately there's been a long history of violence against Indigenous women. But there are things that people can do individually or as communities. There is a strong component on education. So many universities and provincial ministries of education are looking at education materials and to how Indigenous peoples are portrayed in history courses, for example, to really share information about the culture and the values of Indigenous peoples, rather than portraying Indigenous peoples really as kind of bystanders to Canadian history. So there's a lot. One of my favorites is actually the library in Saskatoon, which is where I went to university, had a call for reconciliation. And what they did was encourage people to read books by Indigenous writers. So they've made the books available, and so that is really something concrete that people can see. And so I've seen that a number of people have taken an interest in these writers, and I myself am reading more of them. So
you have a great photo there. That's on screen, of course, showcasing one of the representations of Indigenous groups in Canada. Which one is that?
That I'm not sure, but I think it's from Western Canada.
Okay.
Probably Alberta.
Yeah. So this is a part of what's being depicted in your photo exhibit. Is this?
There's one Indigenous, yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So the celebration within your offices across the country right now is a photo exhibit commemorating the 150th anniversary of Confederation. Talk to us about the selections that you have made to be able to showcase to people across the world how they can connect with Canada.
So it's an exhibit. It's basically 22 pictures that we brought here in Belize City. Depicting, it's called the exhibit is called Canada Synonym of, and it's basically depicting different facets of modern Canada. So what the High Commissioner was discussing, we have a picture about our natural environment, about our multiculturalism, about our education opportunities, about our sports. So we have a good picture of a hockey player, for example. And it's an exhibit that is right now in the Government House in Belize City for 3 weeks, starting, yesterday up until June 23rd. And then we are very excited because it's also moving up to Curaçao for another 3 weeks. So from July 1st, which is Canada Day, until July 21st. So we invite everybody to go see it. Here's our Royal Mounted Police Force. So a bit of everything, our natural resource management picture. So we really try to get the audience a sense of what Canada is today.
Yeah. And it just opened last night, as you pointed out, at the House of Culture. The exhibit is titled Canada, a Synonym for.
Synonym of.
A synonym of. Talk to us about that particular theme. What are you trying to convey to people who come out and see the photo exhibit?
I guess why that we have many different faces and we're a very welcoming country. I think we'd like the audience to want to live, work, travel to Canada and see our diversity and what we stand for.
Now, Lara, let's talk. You are a senior trade commissioner. And I think that's always an area when we talk about cooperation that we're looking at. Let's talk about opportunities perhaps that people are not taking advantage of, that they can know more about when it comes to trade.
Sure. Well, maybe I'll start on one that we've already touched on, would be education. So there is just a plethora of universities and colleges and all sorts of education opportunities and exchanges. And so something we want to do more is start reaching out to Belizean students when they're in high school, elementary school, and tell them this is Canada. Of course, we invite parents to bring your children to the photo exhibit as well, to start seeing and piquing their interest, so that as they go to school and learn more about it, they'll realize that we have wonderful world-class education facilities and universities. It's very reasonably priced, more inexpensive than the US in a lot of cases. I have to put that plug in there.
Well, trust me, that's important to us too.
And in a lot of cases, you're able to work for 20 hours a week while you're going to school, so you can pay for your education while you're working. And of course, our wages are minimum wage or above in Canada, so then that helps you pay the tuition while you're there. So I think that's a really strong point. Something that we do so it's the Trade Commissioner Service, it's part of the Government of Canada, is we're promoting type of institutional linkages between Canadian and Belizean universities in this instance, or promoting Canadian exports and investments. So one way we do it is I go about and I meet Belizean companies and I say, do you want to import anything? And if they're looking to import anything, I provide lists of Canadian companies that provide those goods or services. And it's something we always do completely free of charge because we're just trying to promote these connections and linkages and exports.
Yeah. Have you found any particular opportunities that people aren't taking advantage of as yet?
Well, there's a lot of Canadian products.
Yeah.
So it's about I think Belize's current economic situation and how much you're able to import probably from all over the world. I'd love to see some maple syrup here in Canada, or the real maple syrup from Canada. Of course, these things that we love. We love peanut butter in Canada. You go down the aisle and you have several different types of peanut butter. So kind of random things like that we love and Canadian tourists love as well. So you see them on the shelves of the store.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. There's a lot of equipment that comes in from Canada. So when you go to stores like Caribbean Tire, a lot of that stuff is imported from Canada as well. And on the other side in Canada, we import a lot of your tropical fruits and fish and all sorts of goods and grains and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. Now there's also a good amount of technical skills that are passed on as well. And we know that even your military does some training here as well. And it's kind of a shared experience for Belizean militaries as well. So let's talk about that.
I was here last November and was really lucky enough to see the Belizean military do some, counterterrorism activities and training.
Yeah.
And that was done in cooperation with the Canadian and U.S. military. So that was really gratifying to see, and just to see really the level of cooperation between the militaries and how smoothly they work together. So training is an important part of our military cooperation. Training here in Belize and in other parts of the Caribbean, but as well, we provide some training to Belizean militaries to go to Canada and to take training in the Canadian military training facilities as well. We provide other type of cooperation like more technical cooperation. Our military helped set up the Joint Operations Center just outside of, I think it's in Ladyville. And that is something that is used by the Belizean, not only the Belizean Defense Forces, but other parts of the government to look at a transnational crime, drug trafficking, human smuggling. But it was also used as a sort of response task force for the last hurricane that came through to enable the government to work together more closely and to share information. So we're pleased that we're able to support things in that manner.
Yeah.
I don't know, was there anything?
No.
She's the expert.
No, she nodded the entire time. So now, in being able to reach this achievement, you obviously have your exhibit ongoing, and it's a great window into different opportunities that people have. But what else will be done? You spoke about the priority areas that have been defined. Are there additional programs that are going to be rolled out specifically within Canada and that perhaps will have reach beyond that people can be aware of?
There are some programs in Canada and different opportunities. I would say that probably the best way to keep track of this is to follow the High Commission Facebook page and Twitter account, because some of that information on Canada 150 celebrations and opportunities is publicized through social media. I don't know if there's any other suggestions. There's some websites in Canada.
And we in the Facebook and Twitter, we also sort of advertise the other things that we actually do in Belize as well. So we talked about defense, but we also have a big development program. It's managed regionally, but we've invested about 1.2 billion Belizean dollars in the Caribbean as a whole. And activities here on the development cooperation side include activities on economic growth, climate change, rule of law. And so we try to take advantage of our social media to be able to showcase what we've done. We've also done a bit on the security side. We talked about defense, but we've also done a lot of training on with authorities to stop cash smuggling, human trafficking. We've helped the port authorities for tourist security, for example. And every year, and I'd like to plug that in, we have a small fund called the Canada Fund, which supports small projects around the country. We just finished our call for proposals on the 31st of May, so we're very excited to see what comes out of it. But last year we funded a shelter for women that were victims of sexual violence, a conservation project, an employment project for girls as well. So these are the kinds of things that we do.
And that's a yearly opportunity people can take advantage of. So if they've missed this particular call for applications, they can be able to take advantage of it next year.
Absolutely. It's around April and May every year that we do it. So
and it's what's the amount of funding that they can
access?
access?
It's about 50,000 Belizean dollars, so in that range. So not big, but it really helps. It can help a great organization do great things. So we really like this fund.
Oh, fantastic. And so, what else would you like to share? I wanted to touch on the fact, of course, that you guys have the best ambassador ever, because in addition to you, High Commissioner, but also I was going to say Prime Minister Trudeau has just become like a superstar across the world with some of the things that he says. But I think what it has established is a sense of openness that that exists within Canada and shows a bit of a progressive move that people are kind of longing for. I wanted to touch on climate change, if you want to, because obviously that is a part of your priority moving forward and celebrating your 150th anniversary, and is now becoming a part of the global conversation with the recent announcement by President Trump for the United States pulling out of the Paris Agreement. So let's just talk about why this is such a priority and how Canada expects to continue to push forward despite what is taking place.
Well, I think our government has taken quite a progressive approach on climate change, which is really reassuring because we see that this is a real thing and that something needs to be done before it's too late. So our government committed $2.65 billion in climate change funding that is going mostly through the regional development banks. Here in the case of the Caribbean and Latin America, that there is funding available for projects through the Caribbean Development Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank. And so the focus of those projects is really on climate change prevention and adaptation, looking at issues such as green technology, and that's a particular area of expertise amongst some Canadian companies. So we're hopeful that this money can be used in the Caribbean and in Belize to help the countries develop a response to climate change, possibly using Canadian technology.
Yeah.
And I would just add that yesterday was World Environment Day, and Canada hosted it. So I don't know if you saw, but our Prime Minister was in front of Niagara Falls making or sending strong messages. And the message was about connecting people to nature and how it's important to keep in mind and to be able to protect in the future.
And maybe one more step that this current government, who started in 2015, I believe, in October, has taken is really stepped up their support for research and development as related to the green technologies, climate funds, technologies, all sorts of things. So there's a lot of support and interactions between federal and provincial governments as well, talking about it, and then towards the universities promoting that research, that development. and then new funds under development to support small and medium-sized enterprises that are coming up with these solutions to help them expand when they get something that could really help the environment and help them market it internationally. And actually 2 of our 3 sponsors last night for the event were in energy. So our gold sponsor was BCall, who people may not know, or maybe they do, but it's wholly owned subsidiary of Fortis Inc., which is a Canadian company from Newfoundland. And then Deltro Energy Inc. is another company that does renewable energies. They're here exploring some possible investment opportunities. And our 3rd sponsor was the Grenfell campus of Memorial University, who probably most people have a lot of direct experience in all the wonderful Belizean students that they receive on their campus.
Okay, so once again, the exhibit will be open in Belize City at the House of Culture until
Until the 23rd of June,
23rd.
and then in Coruscant from 1st of July to 21st of July.
All right, so people should definitely go out and check out the exhibit, and it is entitled Canada, a Synonym for?
Canada is synonym of.
Of.
Same principle.
I'm renaming your exhibit.
I like it.
But we appreciate you stopping in, and I think we got a great opportunity not just to talk about the exhibit, but to understand more about Canada. I think, unfortunately, because of our media exposure in Belize, we're very US-centric, because that's all we have on our cable system. But more and more people have persons, family members living in Canada, studying in Canada, and it's a great way for us to expand beyond what we currently are exposed to. So thank you so much for stopping in. We appreciate it, and you're always welcome back when you're back in country.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, how to do some summer cooking with the kids. That's coming up after the break.